Thanks for tuning in. You're watching The Big Story with me, Avni Raja. Straight on to the top headlines. Major setback for Kejriwal government. Times Network learns that 20 Aam Aadmi Party MLAs have been found guilty of holding office of profit. Election Commission recommends disqualification of 20 MLAs in Delhi. A rattled Aam Aadmi Party cries conspiracy and blames the BJP and Election Commission. Also filed an appeal before the Delhi High Court against the disqualification of its MLAs. Bengaluru's biggest lake catches fire yet again. Bellandur Lake, highly polluted lake of Bengaluru, catches fire. A resident's complaints ignored. Pro-Kannada group strikes again in Bengaluru after defacing Hindi signages, Tamil flexes torn apart in the city. It can't get worse than this. The entire nation appalled over horrors of Haryana. 9 rapes reported in a week's time. Chorus for Chief Minister's ouster grows louder. All right, let's straight get to our big story that we're tracking today. Now, Bengaluru's largest water body has caught fire yet again. This began at around 10:30 a.m. this morning, where smoke could be seen emanating from the Januaray side of the lake. The fire at that point raged on for close to 3 hours before it was brought under control, and then the lake began frothing. But from what you can see on your screens now, the lake bed has caught fire once again. Remember, the lake is filled with full of sewage, chemical effluents and construction debris. And despite a rap from the Green Tribunal, the Karnataka government has not submitted an action plan for reviving the lake. Those are the visuals there on your screens of the Bellandur lake and how it has once again, the fire has reignited once again towards the evening. And those are the visuals there of the fire on Bellandur lake. Let's in fact go across to Shrija for more details. Shrija, this of course is not the first time that this is happening. There's been several times that the lake has been frothing. It's caught fire even earlier on. What's happening? What is the government saying?
Well, to talk about the government, they are still continuing to maintain that they are looking at all the measures that they have submitted before the National Green Tribunal. When I'm talking about the measures, is the short-term and the long-term measures. Now, these measures were arrived at a conclusion in consultation with the IISCs, but other professors as well, including TV Ramchandra. Now, the short-term measures that we're looking at is the installation of aerators, which is to improve the oxygen level of the largest water body, which is the Bellandur lake, and also in fact dewading. Even after dewading has taken place, but what you're looking at is aeration still hasn't been, the aerators hasn't been installed is what we are being told at this point in time. Another point to be noted over here, the second longest measure according to them is the installation of sewage treatment plants. But Avni, let me point this out, even if you're talking about the installation of sewage treatment plants, because remember this particular largest water body receives nearly 60% of the sewage from across Bengaluru, which means 450 MLD of sewage. Now, untreated sewage is flowing into this water body and it is mixed. It is not just sewage which is coming in from across Bengaluru, or for that matter, the vicinity of Bellandur Lake. We are also talking about the chemical effluents, because the factories within this particular area, there are about 488 factories, out of which the Pollution Control Board did make a claim saying that they have shut down 97, and there are few others who had approached the Pollution Control Board saying that they will be complying to all the safety standards as per the Water and Air Act. But clearly that has not been maintained, because otherwise you wouldn't find a raging fire here which has been going on for over 8 hours.
Right. Absolutely, Shrija. We'll get into more of what the measures are and what is the plan going forward. But at this point, what is being done to try and get that fire under control?
Well, it's been over 3 to 4 hours where the fire department has already arrived here at this particular situation, but they're unable to douse this fire because you can clearly see it was only at 2 spots in this very location, and now it's almost spread. It's spread almost to half a kilometer, and what you see is the plumes of fire, and they're unable to reach. The fire department is unable to reach that particular spot because it's inaccessible for them, because it is in between of this particular water body, and the place that we are talking about here, it's not much of residence. It's not a residential area at all, and it is the area that we are looking at is the DRDO, which is the Defense Research Organization, Development Organization, and an army firing range area. Now that is the very area that you are looking at where it has caught fire, and of course the fire tenders are trying their best to reach at that point in time, because clearly we are seeing they are unable to douse this particular fire.
Right. All right, Shrija, stay with us. I've got on the phone line Leo Saldana, environmentalist, with us. Thank you very much, Mr. Saldana, for joining in. Before we get to the causes and what the plans that need to be done, and the fact that the government hasn't really, come up with their plans yet. As far as this fire is concerned, we just heard our reporter telling us that they are unable to access, it's inaccessible to be able to douse the fire. What is the solution? What happens in this kind of a fire when they're not able to reach it to douse it?
Yeah, the first and foremost thing is to warn the citizens who are living around here, the residents who are living around there, to try and leave the place, because plants or whatever material has caught fire has got very toxic material inside that, which is getting airborne, especially heavy metals. Children in particular, pregnant women should not be inhaling that smoke.
Right.
It's very critical that they leave the place, and the city and all the officials, the police, everybody should, and all the residents associations should collaborate to ensure that there is a gentle and very careful evacuation so that people do not inhale that smoke. That is the first thing. The second is to make sure the fire is contained. The space has to be cordoned off. The fire forces would obviously be aware of how to do it, but there needs to be immediate need to create a fire lane and ensure it doesn't spread, which means those who are going in should be protected with masks so that they do not become victims of the toxic fumes that are coming out. It may be a fire on a lake, but it is actually burning plants which have absorbed heavy metals, and there is plastic and all sorts of things which have been dumped there. The third and the most important thing is, once we bring the fire under control, to ensure that we actually take immediate steps to make sure there is no recurrence. There has to be watch and ward staff all the time, because this has become an epidemic of fires.
Yes.
It cannot at all be tolerated anymore.
Right.
And then we can think of wider strategies of how to clean up the lake. But right now, there's an emergency.
Right. Absolutely, Mr. Saldana. This is an emergency. And if you could stay on the line with us, I'm going to go back to Shrija. Shrija, the points that Mr. Saldana was just outlining, that people need to be evacuated, especially when you're talking about pregnant women, you're talking about the elderly children. They should not be inhaling this. They need to be warned, and that area really needs to be cordoned off. Has any of that really happened? Has anybody from the authorities come out and told them, advised them, at least attempted to say that look for alternative places until this comes under control?
Well, that's the irony of Avni. What we are given to understand is that it's not the authorities. We don't see any authorities, or we haven't seen so far any authorities issuing an advisory to the public residents over here. They are continuing to stay over here, right in this particular vicinity where this fire is continuing. Now it has intensified more, and of course they are suffering from respiratory disorders as well. They are unable to even breathe. Now that is a problem that they are facing. Now, even after making repeated complaints and even after taking stock of situation, clearly authorities haven't issued any sort of advisory to this public, is what we're told.
Right. All right, Mr. Saldana, that's really not happened. Of course, we're not seeing the authorities come out and advise citizens, guide them as to what they should be doing in this kind of a situation, or even how harmful these toxic fumes can be. But what is the solution now to douse the fire? Because that's obviously the emergency at this point.
Yeah, I would say that people in large numbers should go in and support the fire forces, because they cannot deal with, we don't have sufficient fire engines to douse this kind of fire for a city this large. Let's understand that. We just have a few stations and very, very few engines which have the capacity to deal with this scale of fire, which they are simply not prepared to deal with this fire. So we need a large volunteer base, but they should all go with wet cloth wound around their noses, so that they don't get exposed, because I don't even think we have enough masks to provide them. A lot of people are asthmatic. A lot of people have allergies in Bangalore. We are naturally prone to allergies, and plus this smoke is going to enhance that risk. So there needs to be that kind of whoever is fit must step up and go there and help put out the fire. Now, I don't know how dangerous the situation is because I have not seen it, I have not experienced it, but I'm sure local people are aware of what can be done. A lot of villagers who understand the lake very well take the help of the villagers who know the lake in and out, and bring them in and help them to assist the fire forces and the police and the BBMP staff to try and put out the fire as quickly as possible. But then we have to take safeguards for them also.
Right. Absolutely, Mr. Saldana. In fact, I want to ask my producers to try and connect some of the residents who live in that area so we can get their perspective as well. But Mr. Saldana, the fact that despite receiving a rap from the NGT, all right, Mr. Saldana, stay with us. We've got Mr. Nagesh on the phone line, who is a resident. Thank you very much, Mr. Nagesh, for joining us. From your perspective, can you tell us what you've been witnessing over the last few hours? I mean, the visuals that we can see on our screens now is of the fire really intensifying as the evening has progressed.
Yes, actually, we did some inquiries. We have been, following up from morning when they started, actually. And so it appears that this is happening in the army area, where there is a semi-dried grass, actually, which has caught fire. And there are about 5,000 Jawans fighting that fire, actually, led by the Major General Raj Purohit himself.
Okay.
So this is the information we received from the army PRO. And the cause of the fire, we have asked the Karnataka State Pollution Control Board to take samples after the fire is brought under control. But since this is marshy area, it is very difficult to approach that place. So this is the short information what we could manage.
All right. And what's the kind of problems, obviously, that people are facing who are living in this area at this point with the kind of toxic fumes? And of course, this is not the first time that this is happening.
Yes, I mean, this fire should not be compared with the other fires which are man-made. I mean, what people do there is, the south border of the lake is all taken over by immigrants from Bangladesh. That is what we have found. And what they do is they segregate the waste and dump, and then they burn it to get rid of it, whatever is rejected. So that is the usual fire we see very frequently. But this fire is grass fire. Doesn't seem to be right now. We can't tell whether there is any chemical which has come with water floating with it. That could be a possibility, but other than that, there is no, solid waste involved here.
Okay. And Mr. Nagesh, as residents, what have the residents really done in an attempt to try and get this Bellandur Lake some attention, get this entire situation really resolved? Because the NGT has also come down heavily on the government, but we haven't seen anything really changing on ground in terms of trying to resolve the situation.
Yeah, even before NGT took up the issue, almost like 2 years back now, we actually have waited more than 1 year, even after the expert committee came out with its report. But not a single step is getting implemented, despite intense pressure with various agencies. We are constantly in talks with the Karnataka, KNCDA, which is coordinating with other agencies, but not seeing any progress whatsoever. So that is one thing. But this issue is actually more than 5 years old, where N.K. Patil report was tabled, and by Karnataka High Court, that verdict was given that, they ordered the state government to take action on all leaks. Now, NGT case only talks about 4% of that list. And still, these same agencies are asking for 5 years. This is something of a joke.
Right.
Because the old case, which involved all lakes in the BMRDA area, that itself was, nothing was done on it. And then now the same agencies are asking for 5 more years without doing anything, for 4% of the original area.
Right.
And for the last 2 years, nothing has happened, 0% progress. So, you can figure out Like we will need hundreds of years at this rate, actually.
Right. And Mr. Nagesh, at this point, the residents who are the buildings who are surrounding this area, how much difficulty are they facing in terms of dealing with those fumes that are emanating at this point? And has anybody from the authorities come out and given any kind of advisory saying that you need to avoid these fumes or wear masks, or perhaps if, for pregnant women, move to another location for temporarily?
No, actually, see, basically, we have been dealing with such fires and which are much more dangerous because we know that there's a reject material, the worst kind of material which is carcinogenic also. It is being burned on a regular basis.
Right.
And so we have actually drawn the attention of all authorities, but, hardly any effect actually.
Right. All right. Mr. Nagesh, I'm going to ask you to stay on the line with us. I'm being joined by Mr. Brijesh Kallappa of the Congress on the phone line. Thank you very much, Mr. Kallappa, for joining in. I want to understand your response. This fire, it was doused. It started in the morning. It was doused a few hours later. Now it's come back. And if you can actually see the visuals on our screens here, it's intensifying as the evening progresses.
No, it's, first of all, very regrettable that this kind of a fire is taking place. But I must only humbly point out that this issue, whether regarding frothing of the lake, whether of fire, it has been a continuous issue for the last 20 years. It's for the last 2 decades. And currently the issue is being handled and looked at very closely by the NGT. And we have had a whole lot of experts look into the issue, and we have had a whole lot of other people try to give us suggestions, and we have actually incorporated every single one of them, whether it's of installing CCTV cameras, whether it's of ridding the area of garbage collectors, and various other things we have taken. All the steps which the NGT has asked us to take, we have, very beautifully complied with them. Okay. And if more needs to be done, the state is more than willing to fulfill. Whatever directions come, whatever suggestions come from the experts, we're not running away from a single one of them, and we are willing to fulfill every single one of these suggestions or directions which the court gives. So beyond that, I don't know, because the experts have not been able to find a solution to this. We have been asking them, we have been talking to the experts, we've been appearing before court, filing compliance applications, filing compliance affidavits. But despite that, this problem seems to have remained unsolved. And we only hope that there will be some experts at some point in time who will be able to tell us the way out.
Right, but Mr. Kallappa, NGT had, if I understand correctly, had given a deadline sometime back of 3 months, and then the government then said that we need more time, we need as much as 3 years to get this entire issue resolved.
No, but the NGT is continuously looking at the issue. It's not that the NGT has taken out its hands off the issue. The matter is still pending. The matter is still sub judice before the NGT.
Right.
So they are constantly passing orders. There are applications being filed. Somebody has an idea, they move the NGT. The NGT gives us directions. So we are fully complying. Of course, the problem has remained unsolved. But like I told you, this is not the problem of only our government, the Congress government. But this has been a continuing situation over the last 2 decades.
Right.
Because we know report.
Right. Right. Go ahead, Mr. Kallappa.
This issue for the last 2 decades. And I myself was a reporter in 97. And I knew that this issue had prevailed even then. Whether it's a frothing lake, whether it's a burning lake. Even this issue remained even then. So it's not that, this issue has just begun now. But we are trying to find a solution to it. But some problems, I think, are take a little longer. And they're intractable. So, but we are certainly, our intent is to find a solution to it.
All right, Mr. Kallappa, request you to please stay on the line with us. We're getting a viewer on the phone line, Harish from Bengaluru. Hi, Harish, go ahead.
Hello?
Hello, yes, Harish, go ahead. I can hear you.
Yeah, I was just watching the TV, the live show which is coming out here. Me, being a resident of Bangalore, this is usually, this is eventually, this is the 4th or 5th time which is repetitive with once the foam which came out from the lake, and second time, now the fire as well. This is really ridiculous, and if we pass by nearby also, a huge smoke, we are unable to inherit the fresh air as well. And this is due to, if you give me a permission, I can let you know why exactly this is happening.
Right. Harish, yes, go ahead very quickly.
Yes, perfect. Because the industries which comes across, like Electronic City, Hosur Main Road, all these industries, the garbage which comes out, with the pipeline, with the sewage lines, it all is being connected to the lake, and that's causing this issue. And once, I had a chance speaking with the BDA, but still, they didn't take our, the residents, me being the residents of Bellandur, they didn't allow me to register a complaint as well.
Right. All right. Harish, I'm going to have to cut you short there. Thank you so much for calling in. I want to go back to Mr. Kalapa. Mr. Kalapa, what would you like to tell the residents, the citizens of Bengaluru, especially those who are staying in these surrounding areas of this lake and who are facing that toxic foam, the foam as well as the fumes of this kind of a fire? They're pregnant women and old people, children, and it's extremely dangerous for. What would you like to tell them? Because from what you're telling me, you're saying that, we're doing everything we can and nothing's working.
Yeah, but see, the first thing I'd like to tell them is that, look, they are the people who are surrounding the lake. So if they have any idea, any clues, I think they should let the BDA and the Lake Development Authority know about it. They can also, on their own, I just heard this gentleman because he seemed to have some idea. I think if some of them could even join together and file an affidavit before the NGT, and if the NGT could look at that issue, because they're a specialized kind of court which looks at this, and they also have some experts to advise them. If some of them can even team up and file an application before the NGT, and if those directions come from them also. But like I told you, we are always open. Always.
But Mr. Kalapa, we've been talking to a lot of the residents, a reporter as well, and we just before you came on the show, we had another resident from who's living in that area, and who've all been saying that we've been trying to talk to authorities, we've been trying to get this situation resolved, we've been also talking to their own set of experts that they have, trying to find a solution, but the authorities haven't been receptive to them. That's what we're getting.
No, see, I think to some extent it might be true, but to some extent it will not be correct also, because the authorities are also, like I told you, they are complying with various directions of the NGT and various other courts. The High Court is also looking into this issue, and they also have a whole team of experts advising them. So if unless there is some really good idea which comes from some expert, I think just going from resident to resident and talking to them will not serve the purpose, unless the resident really has some, top class ideas. So I think the first thing I'd like to say is that if there are some good ideas which are coming, the government, of course, I'm not an expert, so I can't tell you which one is good or which one is bad. So we'll have to rely on the experts only. And I think if the experts are unanimous in their opinion, or if they have a consensus that this is a fairly good idea, I think it should go through.
Right. And the NGT, if I understand correctly, has asked for some sort of a plan from the government. Is that in the process of being submitted to the NGT?
No, whatever court directs, we are fully complying, and we are in the process of complying.
Okay.
Everything.
Okay. And at this point, what is being done? If you can tell us, what is being done to try and bring this fire now under control?
This, I think, the local there is a Lake Development Authority. They're fully seized to the matter, and they are the ones who are actually dealing with this issue. And along with the BBMP, BDA and the BWSSB, I think they're all meeting today, and they will have this issue resolved.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Kalapa, for joining us. Well, that's as far as the Bellandur Lake is concerned. This is not the first time it's happening, and from what Mr. Kalapa told us, it perhaps won't be the last time, because like he was saying, they've been trying to do their best to resolve the situation, but at this point nothing's working, and it seems like they're at a shooting in the dark at this point, because even whatever expert suggestions have been told to them, they've tried to comply with, and that's not working, and this is happening time and time again. Remember, Bellandur Lake receives as much as about 40% of the city's sewage, and this froth and fire. This fire happened in May 2015, August 2016, Feb 2017 as well. The has caught fire multiple times. All right, well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of The Big Story. Thank you so much for watching.